You see the Destroy All Humans 2 news? No, not yet. I know it's coming though.
This is Mario Kart Double Dash.
Such a good
And for
game
a decade and a half, it was known as one of the most polished games in the Mario Kart franchise. Most entries in the series are loaded with game-breaking shortcuts. 64 is famous for its
God,
skip.
64 speedrunning is
Wii has a
amazing.
faulty checkpoint system. Super Circuit is perhaps more broken than any other.
I don't even know
These
that
games
one.
all have healthy time trial competition,
Thanks, Resub
and
Argent,
both
Bob,
non-shortcut
and the 10
and
gifts of
shortcut
Leeburst.
world records that have been
Leebird,
tracked for
thank you,
many
Lee.
years.
Appreciate it,
But
man.
then there's Mario
gifts of
Kart
Jack.
Double Dash. Immediately upon its release in 2003, a shortcut was found on Waluigi Stadium. And for the next 15 years, that was it. Double Dash has always had a competitive time trial scene,
That's boring.
but it's
Stop
been
making
nearly
polished games.
exclusively non-shortcut racing. With one exception, the developers have managed to create a shortcut-free game. For years, Double Dash's speedrun scene grew, as players mastered its racing mechanics and optimized non-shortcut races. But all of a sudden, in 2018, Double Dash's reputation as a shortcut-free game.
Alright, just to address that, I saw someone post it in the chat. Anyone find the old videos? No. People have found some that were uploaded to other channels, which I always knew about, but there have been 2 cases where people have found 2 videos that I didn't know still existed, but from what I understand, they were also just on other channels that I never bothered to search for. But, so I guess to answer the question, no, but kind of, for like 2 individual videos. And happy birthday, Lee Bird. Hope you have a great birthday. Thanks to the resub TC and the gift sub Tony, and the Prime Radeon, and Tony. No, I'm not gonna moist meter stray. Did you pay them? I couldn't decide, because they didn't like recover old videos, they just showed me 2 channels that had them, that I didn't see before. But they were just channels that had already re-uploaded them a long time ago I didn't know about. So I haven't been able to decide. Give them half at least? Half of what? The 25k was for every video, so I don't know what a per video thing would be. Pay the channel? Yeah, like I'd be happy to pay the channel, because the channel's the one that had it. Like that's where the hang up is. It wasn't them that recovered it. It was the channels that have existed for like 15 fucking years. But the channels are defunct. So I don't know, it's just in a really tricky situation. There's a resub, Ethan. A finder's fee? Yeah, I get. See, like again, it's just a hard call to make. I mean, it doesn't hurt to just send them like $20 or something. So I mean, if they want, that's fine. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, no one's actually going to be able to recover those. It's a task that, out of desperation, I decided to put out there, but I knew it would never actually be completed. Though it is cool to at least see 2 old ones that I thought were gone, but turns out have still always been on YouTube. There's a tier 1 Nemo and the Prime Piss, Jaeger and the resub Kevillock, and tier 1 Noble. Actually, I'm gonna make a note of that before I forget.
Was put on its head. A game that was almost completely void of any glitches quickly became one of the most broken in the franchise. This is the story of the Mario Kart Double Dash Shortcut Revolution.
Yeah, finished God of War 3 2 days ago.
First off, what is a shortcut? Well, to count as an official shortcut in the Mario Kart time trial community, it not only has to save time, but also be unintended by the developers. For instance, the jump at the start of Yoshi's Circuit doesn't count as a shortcut, since it was intentionally built into the course. Double Dash came out in November 2003. We don't
Still
know
one of
who
the best
discovered
GameCube
it,
games.
and it's unknown exactly when it was found, but by the end of 2003, a shortcut had been discovered. And for the next 15 years, it would remain the only shortcut in the game. This is Waluigi Stadium.
Double Dash
About
is the shit.
2/3 of the
Yeah.
way through a lap,
It was.
you can
Still
drive
is.
off this slope and hit into the fence with enough speed to get thrown into the air. If you make it high enough, Lakitu thinks you fell off from this bridge, which is right before the finish line. So he picks you up and places you down there.
Oh,
It
that's
saves
cute.
just under 2 seconds per lap and can be performed on all 3 laps.
Seems
While
like it
it's
should save
unclear
more.
exactly when this trick was discovered, it's known to have existed within a month and a half of the game's release. And quickly, there was
Exercise of will.
discussion on the Double Dash forums over whether or not shortcut times should be put on the website. Ultimately, the community decided that since the shortcut was one of a kind, it wouldn't be tracked on the website. So, the players page contained a space for non-shortcut records on every track, but
Thanks to the gift of
nothing
Corbin.
for Waluigi Stadium shortcut.
And Tier 2 gets a thank you,
Still,
Corbin.
some players chose to drive shortcut races anyway. Records began to be set in December 2003, but video proof was much less strict back then. Even more so for an
I can't believe that's
unofficial
almost
category
20
not
years
on the
ago
main
now.
website. However, one
Fucking
3-lap video
crazy.
from back then still exists. A run from 2004 by Ipusen. And yep, it looks like it's from 2004, alright.
No, it looks a
The
lot
biggest
better than
strategy used
2004.
was executing frequent mini turbos.
That
By
looks like the
starting
video
a
quality
drift
I
with
used to
R,
upload in
moving
2010.
the stick in the opposite direction and back to neutral twice, and then releasing R, you get a short boost of speed. Mini turbos are key to getting fast times, and Ipusen performed them constantly through his 3 laps. He also did the shortcut on the right slope instead of the left, which was slower but likely a bit easier. The biggest driving technique discovered was A-Tech, first seen in runs from 2004 but expanded upon by JSX in February 2006. If you release accelerate between mini turbos, the kart sways back and forth less, saving fractions of a second as you're able to take straighter lines and more direct
That's
paths
cool, so there's
forward.
actual movement tech in Double Dash?
Thanks to that and other small driving optimizations, the record still sees competition to this day, with the most recent world records being set
resub
in
muffin.
late June 2022. But it all started
test.
back in 2003. Double Dash was brand new. There was reason to believe that this shortcut was just the beginning, and that in a few short years, there would be skips all over. That's how it went for previous games in the franchise, and that appeared to be happening in Double Dash just the same. But instead, this game's history took a different path. Years passed, still no new shortcuts. The game's time trial scene grew bigger and bigger, and by the mid-2000s it was vibrant, with top players from all over the world. But other than the occasional Waluigi Stadium race, the competition was
My favorite game is City of
exclusively
Heroes, man.
non-shortcut. The focus was on optimizing every last millisecond from the 16 courses, improving lines, performing more mini turbos, and implementing A-Tech. By 2008, Mario Kart Wii was released.
Never had a
And
Wii,
within
so I actually
months,
didn't get to
that
play this
game
one.
had massive ultra shortcuts breaking its tracks. Mario Kart Double Dash, several years older, still had just one shortcut. The years continued to pass, and suddenly, 5 years turned into 10. Still, there was nothing new.
Here's a Prime Mythic.
Mario Kart Double Dash was an unbreakable game, and that's all there was to it. In over a decade of searching, absolutely nothing had been found. Well, okay, there was one thing.
Easy tier 1 maggot and the prime white knight.
In Mario Kart Double Dash, courses are surrounded by invisible planes that are nicknamed Lakitu zones. When you fall off a track and collide with one of these zones, that's Lakitu's cue to pick you up and drop you back on the track. But this system isn't perfect. Suppose you fall off and manage to not hit a Lakitu zone. What happens?
You fall forever,
Well,
straight to hell.
in that case, you've officially made it out of bounds, and Lakitu still picks you up, but he sets you back somewhere a bit different. No matter where you go out of bounds, Lakitu sets you just behind the finish line. Since
That's
you
cute.
never hit
Thanks,
a
Lakitu.
Lakitu zone, the game doesn't know where to put you, and sets you down right at the end of the course. Unfortunately, crossing the finish line doesn't count a lap,
Oh.
but at the very least this did provide some intrigue. If players could somehow figure out a way to get a lap to count, warping straight to the finish line would save massive time. Out-of-bounds mechanics were discovered shortly after the game's release, but for many years it wasn't paid much attention. Despite its promising nature, the simple fact was that without getting the lap to count, it wasn't really a useful trick. But still, for the next 15 years, players wondered if maybe there was something that could be done with it. Some way that the lap could count
He's a
and
prime
have
pink.
a shortcut be discovered.
I imagine it'll be kind of
Then
like Mario Kart
2018
Wii's.
came around. The champion
You
of
just need to
Mario
hit the
Kart
right
Double
trigger.
Dash at that point was named Goomba, and in August, he saw this random guy's video on Mario Kart Wii.
That's exactly
And
what I
in
just
it,
speculated.
He saw that game's community figure out the checkpoint system and use it to break courses and create massive shortcuts. Meanwhile, in 15 years of Double Dash, its checkpoint system had yet to be solved. But was it possible? Could a lap count when most of the driving is skipped? Well, Goomba finally decided enough was enough. He began a
Curiosity
deep dive into
eating
the
away
inner
at him.
workings of the game, attempting to figure out exactly what conditions had to be met for a lap to count. And over the course of several months, with the contributions of community members like Lothjohn and Tarsa, Mario Kart Double Dash's code was cracked.
Summoning
There
Salt
are
was able to
three
make this
conditions
video
that
because
must
of
be met
Summoning
for a
Salt.
lap
I
to
know, isn't
count
that
in
crazy?
Mario Kart Double Dash. Condition
Easy
1.
tier 1 more hub.
You must
in the
start
prime
the
spook.
lap in checkpoint 0, the first checkpoint on the map. Each course in the game is broken up into invisible checkpoints, which are used to help keep track of how far you've driven. This condition is pretty straightforward. For a new lap to start, you must be touching the first checkpoint of the course. Condition 2. You must have credit for driving through every checkpoint. Checkpoint bit counters in the game keep track of whether or not you've touched any given checkpoint.
Isn't this
through the
exactly how
lap.
Mario Kart Wii
If you
calculates it as
haven't,
well?
it's
And
set
knowing
to 0,
Nintendo, it's not like they
and
innovate.
If you have, it's set to 1. In order for a lap to count, every checkpoint must have a bit counter set to 1, which would intuitively mean that you're not allowed to skip driving through any checkpoints. However,
It's similar,
on
but not
Waluigi
exact.
Stadium,
Okay.
you skip several when performing the shortcut.
Concept's still the same.
Why does the lap still count? Well, that's because there's a workaround. If you hit a Lakitu zone and get picked up, you automatically get credit for every checkpoint between where you got picked up and where you were placed down. It's known as a lack hop, and is the only way around having to touch every single checkpoint. And finally, condition 3. Your race completion must be greater than your number of laps completed.
What does that even
Double
mean?
Dash has an internal counter called race completion that starts at 0 and gradually increases as you drive around the course. Once you complete a lap, it hits 1 and then continues counting up again. The reason this matters is because of a failsafe developers put into the game, the 50% rule. If your race completion ever jumps up by 50% or more, it rounds down and you lose credit for all you've driven through the lap. So if you go out of bounds 30% of the way through a track, then are warped to the finish line, your race completion is set to just below 0. Since this is less than the 0 laps that you've completed, you won't get credit for a lap. Together, These 3 rules were designed to prevent
I wonder if that's
any
something they
shortcut from
consciously
existing
decided
in
on
Mario Kart
internally.
Double Dash.
Or just
And
like
for 15
a
years,
happy little accident.
they worked nearly flawlessly. Goomba hadn't figured this all out by late
He's a prime
2018,
enigma,
but he had a
ghosting,
general
every
understanding
sub-comrade
of
and
how
Tori.
it worked. Now, he had to put it all
Maddie.
together somewhere, and the course he looked at was Mushroom Bridge. He had to not only get credit for driving through all the checkpoints, but also avoid cutting out more than 50% of the course at a time. It was going to have to be a 2-step process. To get checkpoint credits, he took the lack hop mechanic to the next level. By going on the grass just before the finish line, you can use a mushroom and release brake at the last moment to fly forward and hit a Lakitu zone. This zone is in front of the finish line, but because of where you hopped off, you're put back just before the finish line. And since you get credit for all checkpoints between where you're picked up and where you're set down, you get credit for every checkpoint on the course. That was step 1. The next step
So now he
was
needs
to
to
get
do
race
50%,
completion
yeah.
for the lap to count.
51%.
Together with Lothjon, Goomba took a look at the bridge right before the start. By precisely jumping off at about 87% completion, you can hit the wall on the other side at about 37%. This is a decrease of only 50%, so it's valid as far as the game is concerned.
I'm so
You then
confused. Wait, what?
respawn at 85%, once again less than 50%, and have therefore earned race completion for an entire lap.
What the fuck?
So,
Wait, how does
it was
that work?
possible to do a lack hop to get checkpoints, then turn around and quickly do a bridge
Well,
hop
like,
to get race
going up
completion.
on bridge, how does that give him
That
87%?
satisfies both conditions 2 and 3. So if you drive over the finish line to enter the first checkpoint box, a lap counts. On September 15th, 2018, Double Dash's first shortcut in 15 years was born.
Thanks for the resub, Jacob.
Goomba's first 3-lap record with video clocked in at 1:15.639, about 2.5 seconds ahead of the non-shortcut record. He drove the first lap
so it wasn't,
normally,
like, huge.
then performed a shortcut on lap 2, and finished with a normal lap 3. Doing the shortcut more than once per race wasn't possible, as you needed a mushroom for the lack hop, and your mushrooms are taken away when picked up by Lakitu. Over the following few days, Goomba and a runner named J98 would trade the record down to a 1:14, each time doing the shortcut once and driving 2 laps normally. However, Goomba then figured out it was possible to do the lack hop without a mushroom. By going on the pillar next to the bridge, you have sufficient height that you can bounce off the ground and make it far enough without using a mushroom. This
So you could
not
use it on
only
the
was
first lap.
faster than the old method, but also meant that, theoretically, the shortcut could now be done more than once in a race. However, doing the bridge jump once was hard enough. Doing it twice in a row seemed nearly out of the question. Later in September, J98 and Goomba each did more mushroom bridge
These are
attempts,
some Chex Mix,
lowering the
Giuseppe,
record to
Speed, and the
111.
Give Sub Mo.
But
The
still,
Prime Spooky.
nobody was able to get the shortcut more than once in a race. Players focused their efforts elsewhere, and the task of hitting 2 shortcuts was just too daunting. For over a year, that's where the record stood. But in March
What was the guy
2020,
from
someone began playing Mushroom Bridge shortcuts.
Mario 64? What was his name? Starts
Only
with an
this
A.
time,
Ace
it
Thorn?
wasn't Goomba or J98.
Fuck, wait,
It was a relative newcomer to the
oh,
game.
that wasn't even him
One
anyway.
who is ranked outside of the top 40. But he
Abby.
was ready to try and take down
Yeah, I think it was
the
Abby.
world record.
Abney.
His name was Mathy. Mathy didn't have the driving skills of a world champion like Goomba. That meant that without anything new, his 111 was going to be awfully tough to beat. But he had one other option. He could go for 2 shortcuts in the same race. It had never successfully been pulled off before, but even with worse driving, it could be enough to beat Goomba. Mathy got to work grinding attempts, getting as good as he could at the bridge hop and lack hop. And on March 2nd, 2020, he had this attempt.
Far away, far into the mountain, that would Okay, yeah, it worked. That's fine. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Alright, don't freaking lose this.
I don't even think it's possible to choke here. That a boy.
Oh my god! There! It's so bad! But that's it. That's it. Sub 111. Let's go.
So I think I finally
record.
understand it now. The reason this works is doing that lack hop gives them credit for every single checkpoint. So then they just need to go to the bridge for the completion. And going up bridge to make that jump gets you the 87. I see it now. Now, watching him do it finally clicked in my head how it works. I thought the lack hop plus bridge was somehow like 87% of the way through the run already. I didn't realize they were independent of each other. I get it.
By less than a tenth of a second. Not to be outdone, world champion Goomba came back, and over the next few days, the two of them traded world records. However, over the next several months, Matthew would pull ahead, as he was able to line up faster for the lack hop and improved his driving around the course.
Yeah, let's fucking go, dude. 107, 325.
Sub
So
1
now,
inbound?
A 1 out of 3 shortcut run had been optimized. A 2 out of 3 shortcut run had been optimized. There was only one thing left to do.
Sub 1
Hit
minute
the
with a 3.
shortcut on all 3 laps.
Thanks for some mustachio. The three-peat.
A 3 out of 3 run was originally thought to be slower, since you could quickly line up for a lack hop after driving a lap normally. However, in February 2022, Matthew tested with save states and confirmed that, if performed optimally enough, a 3 out of 3 shortcut run would indeed save time. But actually hitting it was another story. Matthew had gotten quite good at executing the lack hop and bridge hop over the years, but he would need to do 3 of each in a row. That's 6 consecutive difficult tricks. It could take a while to grind this out. But just 4 days later, Matthew got himself on this run.
Go. Let's go. This
Okay.
works. Pog. Poggiest Pog.
Okay.
Here we go.
Please.
No sub 1.
Oh, come on! Ah, 104!
He was a bit upset because he wanted a 103, not a 104.
Well,
But history had still been
a little
made.
embarrassing, yeah.
This 104.363,
Not even sub
the
1.
world's first 3 out of 3 run, is still the record today. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. As far as shortcut discoveries are concerned, we're still in
Here's some
2018.
Chris.
And at this point, the only time trial shortcuts in the game were Waluigi Stadium from 2003 and Mushroom Bridge from 2018. But just a month later, thanks to a better understanding of how checkpoints worked, Double Dash's 3rd time trial shortcut would be discovered. Welcome to Bowser's Castle. Bowser's Castle was quickly singled out as a prime candidate for a shortcut. The reason why is because of the balcony. About 40% of the way through a lap on Bowser's Castle, you drive on a balcony directly adjacent to the finish line. Drive to 60%, and you're higher up on the same balcony. It seemed natural that with so many regions being so close together, you could somehow get credit for being further in the lap than you really were. But for a while, it didn't seem to be possible.
Hero and the Prime Soup.
However, after Mushroom Bridge's discovery, Lothjohn and Goomba looked into Bowser's Castle. And thanks to exploiting a specific game mechanic, they figured out how to use the balcony to their advantage. This
Probably bounce off
is the
left side and go
A-Tech
over.
hop. As mentioned
I'm
before,
wrong.
A-Tech is when you release the A button
I figured it'd
between
just be a
mini
ricochet.
turbos to keep a straighter line. However, there's a side effect of A-Tech. Your kart's nose gets slightly lifted in the air. If you do a mini turbo with A-Tech, then perform a sharp turn after releasing A, and then press R and A while your nose is pointed up, your kart hops into the air.
Oh.
It's called an A-Tech hop, and is the only way to hop in Mario Kart Double Dash.
Well, that's a big hop.
So, after driving half a lap normally, you arrive at the balcony. By performing an A-Tech hop in a precise spot off the ledge, your race completion goes from 40% to 60% as you hit the upper balcony checkpoints, to 99% as you hit the finish line checkpoints, and back to 40% as you respawn. It never jumps up by more than 50% at a time, so your race progression increases by a full lap, and you get checkpoint credits upon respawning. This trick would go on to be nicknamed the flop. For
Oh,
laps 2
that's
and
so
3,
cute.
You can flop off the ledge,
Like
then
in pole
lack off
vaulting?
to get checkpoint credits
What
for
is
the
it, the
full
flat
lap,
Fazberry flop?
and complete the race having driven hardly any of it. So, Goomba got to work, and managed to hit the shortcut after a few tries on
Thanks,
October
Reset
10th,
Coyote.
2018.
In Tier 1 Zesty.
A 2:09 run, ahead of the non-shortcut record by 7 seconds. Over the following few days, he'd cut down on the number of
High
tries
jump,
needed
not
to hit
pole
it,
vault? Or,
taking
wait,
the time down
Is
to
it not pole vault?
126. But on the 14th, Goomba would hit the first ever 3 out of 3. A run with
Oh, you're
3
right, it is the high
flops and 3 lack hops, and a final time of 106.
Yes, dude! Oh,
My god.
the winner, Tenko.
A month later, a runner named Rick Bick would be the first to cut out a lack hop by hitting the proper checkpoints on the flop. That lowered the record to just over a minute. But just 5 days later, Goomba would return to not only take the record back, but take it under a minute. Mario Kart Double Dash's first ever sub-minute
Sub-minute.
world record.
Let's
Yes,
go.
dude. Oh my god, 59.
Get it?
And then, 3 years would pass.
Oh, shit.
Goomba chose to play other courses
Then
in the
T-Pain
game,
picks up the
and
game.
most other runners had little interest in shortcuts or just couldn't compete with him. But then Matthew came along. At first, he struggled to set any records on Bowser's Castle, but in September 2021, he
Thanks for
finally
Prime
came
Crusty and the
through
resub, Brevin.
with a 58-second run. But what Matthew would do just 4 weeks later was far more impressive. He would discover another shortcut, known today simply as the Big Bounce. And this is why. The Big Bounce is essentially a larger version of the A-Tech hop. Instead of angling your kart's nose up with A-Tech, you want to very precisely maneuver your kart along the edge. By then rotating around, your nose is pointed up much higher than it would be from A-Tech. You can then use a mushroom and do a more extreme version of the A-Tech hop called the Extreme Hop.
So it's pretty similar to,
By
again,
using
Mario
another
Kart
mushroom
Wii.
when you land, you perform what's called a shroom bounce and get even more air.
Mario Kart Wii has something
enough
pretty similar.
to hit the Lakitu zone and
Which makes
respawn
sense.
on the
It's
balcony.
Nintendo.
This saves
They don't
close to
fucking
10
change anything.
seconds if performed optimally, but adds another layer of difficulty. Still, it didn't take long before Matthew was able to hit it in a run, and lower the record by another 6 seconds.
Yeah, this shit can go sub 50.
Let's go.
Matthew goes 3 for 3 here.
Nice job, dude.
Goomba didn't take long to respond, taking another 2 seconds off mostly via a faster big bounce at the start. That's where the record stood for about 6 months. But in April 2022,
Yeah, it's time we go
Matthew
sub 50.
would come back once more, and finished off a 49-second world record with
Let's
one of the
go.
most sarcastic celebrations in speedrunning history.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Matthew's 49-second run
This guy does
stands
not
as the
pop
record
off.
today.
This man is a stone.
Bowser's Castle has had dramatic record cuts over the years, but without new strategies, it shouldn't go very much lower. After Bowser's Castle, it wasn't
I
obvious
feel like this guy
which
just
course
hates
would
the
be
game,
next.
but he's just good at it,
There
so he
were
feels
several that
obligated
had
to keep
potential,
playing.
although nothing that could quite be put together. One day in October 2018, Goomba was streaming on Twitch and wanted to demonstrate some shortcut theory for his viewers. So, he loaded up Mushroom City. Goomba showed his chat that if you could somehow hit this Lakitu zone from the bottom, the game would set you back on top and you'd skip a good chunk of the course. However, he had tested this before, and the lap didn't count when driving over the finish line. So, he drove forward to show his viewers how a lap wasn't counted.
Ooh.
What?
And then the unthinkable happened.
What? But that's not supposed to work.
Goomba had no idea what had happened. But
It
he
was a
quickly
solar
figured
flare
it out.
again.
This part of the course contains both checkpoint
Oh,
boxes
not a solar flare. What was
24
it?
and 25.
A neutrino
They
burst?
extend infinitely
from the sun?
upwards. If you touch the Lakitu zone in box 25, you never actually leave this box when you respawn, so neither race completion nor the checkpoint bit counter gets updated. If
It was
you
a
touch it in
cosmic ray?
box
Oh,
24,
okay.
on the other hand, you respawn outside of it, so the lap counts as it does on other courses. So that was figured out in October 2018, but this was all just a proof of concept. Goomba had no method of actually touching the Lakitu zone from below. He did it before with a moonjump code. So, it remained on the shelf for the next 2.5 years. But
Till
in March
Matthew.
2021, Matthew solved it again.
Yep. The
His
fucking
method was
madman.
quite similar to the big bounce on Bowser's Castle. You angle your nose up on a slope, then do an extreme hop, and do a shroom bounce to get enormous height and touch the Lakitu zone. As long as you
What
do
an
so
animal.
in checkpoint 24, the lap counts. And just like that, the Mushroom City shortcut was born.
That's one where you can definitely only do it once, though. There's no way you do 2 of those in a run.
Matthew was the first to set a 3-lap record on Mushroom City, just hours after the shortcut was discovered. This was quite a difficult trick to hit, and he still needed to drive well enough
He's the resub
after
ace
for it to be
in Matt.
faster than the non-shortcut record. But he did.
133.369, let's fucking go.
He's more excited for that than the sub
Zumba
50.
began doing attempts too, and thanks to a particularly fast shortcut hit, he beat Matthew and set the record.
Yes!
Over the following few weeks, the two of them would once again get into a world record battle. Matthew came up with a slightly faster way to do the shortcut from the front, and thanks to that, plus improved driving afterwards, the record came under 1:30. But the biggest improvement would be discovered that September, when Matthew found that the shroom bounce wasn't needed. If you got your nose in the air enough and
Hit
did
a
an
car?
extreme hop,
Oh.
it was possible to reach the Lakitu zone without using a mushroom. Now, that technically opened the possibility of doing the shortcut more than once in a race, but it was an extremely difficult trick, tougher than any other
Thanks,
shortcut
Larissa
in the
Bintikill.
game. Many months passed, and the record remained with just 1 shortcut out of 3. Doing it more than that was just too big of an ask. And then, on June 3rd, 2022,
Matthew did it.
Matthew did this.
Oh, pop my knee.
Oh, come on. Oh my god, dude. You're in a world record video. I just did the first
Oh.
2 for 3 Mushroom City glitch.
I love when they start
Yeah,
saying
you
shit
have-
like that.
I just have to not shit the bed. Lap
Like
3
World
now.
Star, but for gamers.
$120.
He had done it again. The
This guy's a
world's
fucking
first
animal.
2 out of 3 shortcut hit on Mushroom City. To this day, it hasn't been replicated.
Okay, well, let's be a little fair here. To this day, it's been a month. It hasn't even been 2 months yet. Like, it could still be beaten. I don't think it will because Matthew's kind of nasty, but it hasn't been that long. I still think there's a really good chance someone can squeak it out. Thanks to the bits Mo and the resub Demos and B-Mithy. Yeah, Mario Kart speedrunning I think is just super fascinating because it's a game that to me doesn't seem like it would lend itself to speedrunning super well with glitches. More just about being good at the actual driving. But they are so deep. Mario 64 and Mario Kart Wii have the wackiest fucking glitches. And now I guess Double Dash as well. He's a Prime Juro. You should be the one to squeak it out? No, I am bad at Mario Kart. Like, unironically bad. Give me just 1 second, though. I really want to fill up my water. I will be just 2 seconds. I'm back. Thanks to Prime Silver and the resub Get It Right, Lunchbox, and the Prime Ghost and Juro. Have you seen Fate Legion's attempt at a statement stream? Yeah, man, they went 32 hours of non-stop looping of a fucking half-asleep man reading their Twitter post. It was so concerning. Thanks to Tier 1 Explicit. Wow, that was wholesome. Well, thank you, Explicit. Wishing you the best with it. Thanks to Prime Squirrel.
Shortcut hit on Mushroom City. To this day, it hasn't been replicated. Will a 3 out of 3 ever be done? Maybe one day, but keep in mind how long 2 out of 3 took. For now, a 120.634 is where the record stands. But these 3-lap runs aren't the only types of world records set in Mario Kart Double Dash. The game keeps track of not only your fastest 3-lap race, but also your fastest individual lap on any given course.
I never really
On the
liked
Double Dash
individual
players
lap
page,
records.
This is called doing a fast lap, or flap for short. So that means it's possible to go to Bowser's Castle and do a flop on your flap. I just wanted to say that. But anyway, flap
That's
world
cute.
records are tracked right alongside 3-lap records and carry a similar level of prestige. But in 2021, a pair of shortcuts would be found that were
He's a
slower
tier
for
1
a
Benji,
3-lap
the resub J,
record,
and Prime
but
Hunter.
would save time over a flap
The
record.
resub Litchi.
They would become the
JCS.
game's first flap-only shortcuts. First up, discovered in March 2021, we have Luigi Circuit. The shortcut on Luigi Circuit is one of the most clever in the game. Step 1 is to drive most of a lap normally. Then, before getting credit for the lap, you turn around and go back out to the front of the course. By doing an A-tech hop, it's possible to get on this ledge right in front of the finish line. You then maneuver right next to this zipper, and let's go over the 3 conditions for a lap to count again. Your checkpoints and race completion are met by driving around the course, which you already did. But the first condition says you have to touch checkpoint 0. This is normally done by just crossing the finish line, but it can also be done by touching it from the other side. So, when you touch the zipper, you enter checkpoint 0 and start the lap with about a 1-second head start. The resulting time
What?
save
That's-
means that you can have an individual lap
Wait,
slightly
it's pretty
faster
negligible.
than what you normally get.
I thought this was going to be like a
Beyond
double
this,
lap or something.
The only optimization is how well you drive the subsequent lap. Since
So much
Matthew
work
discovered
for
the
1
ATEC hop
second.
in March 2021, he and Goomba have alternated who drove better, trading the record back and forth several times. And at the moment, Goomba holds the record with a 23.390. The other flap-only shortcut is a little different. Instead of a 23-second lap, we're talking more like 6 or 7 seconds.
Okay, that's better.
And this
See, that's
time,
much better.
we're headed out to the desert.
That's what I was expecting with the last one.
Dry
I thought I was going to be able to go
Desert had a
back and
lap
forth,
hop
so it'd
that
be
had
like a
been known about
0.4
for
second lap.
years. If you drive away from the road and cross the finish line as you get picked up by Lakitu, you'll be dropped down behind the finish line with all your checkpoints updated. Unfortunately, this wasn't helpful unless you could somehow gain race completion along with it. And for years, there was no way to do that. However, all the way back in 2003, a player named Scott R did this on Dino Dino Jungle. When a
This
floor
video
is
quality is
sloped
great
enough
for
in Double Dash,
2003.
and you drive into it with enough speed while your cart is sideways, it's possible to clip through it. You need to get a bit lucky with your cart's positioning, so it's on one side of the floor one frame and the other side the next.
This just gave me
key
a
is-
stupid idea, and I figured I might as well share it. Half of these tricks I know are discovered by accident. It's just the nature of glitch hunting. I used to be big into glitch hunting back in like Gears. I had my own little glitching clan and shit. I really do wonder, like some of the old obscure games, what kind of fucking crazy tech could be found if people were just motivated to look for it. The game that immediately popped into my head for this right here was not Micromaniacs. It's the old PlayStation game where you play as a bald baby with like glasses. The fuck is anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I think it was something Maniacs. Watch Dogs. Man, what the fuck? Thanks a gift sub bird. Rugrat. Oh my god, I am so over these bad suggestion or bad answers. I'll just look it up myself. Not Micromaniacs. Racing combat game. Here, it'll probably be on this list. Or not, maybe not. I'm losing faith that it's on this list. Okay, that didn't... Okay. Am I like the only one that fucking played this game? It would have been in the late 90s. Mad Tracks? No. I'm pretty sure the name Maniac was in the title. It's called Caillou. Christ. Jesus. I will find it. God damn it. On the cover of the game, it's a baby boy. He's got sunglasses on. He actually might not be bald. I actually think he has a mohawk. Speed Punks. I think that might be it. You might be right. Let's see. Yeah, Wow, I was way off. Speed Freaks. I wasn't even close. But yeah, you got Cindy Vortex here and the gang or whatever. This was a shitty little kart racing game. And I really do wonder if they could find cool tech in this game. Like, I wonder if anyone has. I wonder if there's like an active community for it. Speed Freaks 80%. Every game ever made has a speedrunning community. Holy shit.
Yo, welcome everyone. Okay, today it's a special stream. We're gonna do a speed run here. This is gonna be my first speed run in live.
So he's the only runner, basically.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Damn, this is nostalgic.
Here. Oof, what a... Yes.
The game was fun. Oh, what? Okay, to get obscure again. Well, this isn't that obscure. Snowboard Kids 2. Is there a speedrun for that? Oh, I thought it was with a Z. Yep. Yes, there is. 58 minutes. Not exactly active. Exit Tier 1 Viking in the Prime Avarice, and the resub Ed, Thickboy, Coffin, Zerp, and Cyborg, and Psycho, Carbonated, Preston, and Zay. The point was, I just think it would be cool to see, like, those kind of shittier games, to see what actually exists there in terms of tech. But
finding a
I don't
floor
think anyone will ever bother.
just the right way. It needs to be at the perfect angle so you can actually clip through it. Sort of like this downed pillar on Dry Desert. This particular clip was discovered by Matthew, and since you land out of bounds, you get warped straight to the finish line. So you can drive part of a lap, go out of bounds, then drive around again to stack your race completion higher. By then doing a back hop to finish the lap, you get your checkpoints instantly to start lap 2, and upon crossing the finish line, you have yourself an incredibly short lap. Optimizations have been slim over the years, with just a fraction of a second being shaved off at a time. Matthew and Goomba set most of the records, but famed Super Circuit runner Rusty set a few records too. This actually isn't the fastest flap record in the game, as both Mushroom Bridge and Bowser's Castle have records in the 4-second range. The current record here is 6.437 seconds by Matthew, and it seems that it can only go down by a couple hundredths of a second at most. The key is getting a frame-perfect lap entry, combined with a small bounce when being dropped by Lakitu. But regardless, this record shouldn't be going much lower. That makes it 2 flap-only shortcuts, and 4 that can be done on 3-lap runs. Over the years, many have tried their hand at these shortcuts. Some courses have a leaderboard of a few names, while older ones like Waluigi Stadium have dozens. But there's still one more shortcut to talk about. To this day, only one person has ever pulled it off fast enough. The player was Mathy, and the course was Wario Coliseum.
I'm shocked, actually. I thought they would have found something for like a Rainbow Road.
Wario Coliseum is a unique course. For one thing, it's the only course in the game where you drive just 2 laps for the race to be complete. But it's also got many places you can launch yourself off the road, which gave it huge potential for a shortcut. Throughout 2021, out of bounds and lack hop combinations were theorized, yet nothing came to fruition. But one night in June 2021, Goomba and Mathy hopped on a call and decided to look together. And over the next 24 hours, the Wario Coliseum shortcut was born. First, you drive to around 40% race completion. Then, you fly off the edge of the road, and by using a mushroom to pull your cart down, you avoid touching any other checkpoints and land out of bounds. However, when respawning behind the finish line, the game actually thinks you're on the track below at 55%, so the 50% rule is satisfied. You then drive backwards, do a lack hop to get all checkpoints between where you jumped off and where you went out of bounds, and when you drive forward, a lap counts. Now, is all this faster than just driving the lap normally?
Absolutely.
It actually is, but just barely.
Yeah, 100%. Wait, what?
Only one person has been able to execute it fast enough to save time over a non-shortcut run.
I really would have thought it'd been a lot.
On June 6th, 2021, he did it for the first time, getting a 156.190 that beat the non-shortcut record by 1/100th of a second.
Yes, finally. 156, 190.
2-1 slug in the resub, Danny.
He'd follow this up 4 months later with a 155.735, and then a 155.437 in March 2022. And to this day, those are the only 3 records that have ever been set on Wario Coliseum. Waluigi Stadium, Mushroom Bridge, Bowser's Castle, Mushroom City, Luigi Circuit, Dry Desert, and Wario Coliseum. Those are the 7 courses that have been broken by players of Mario Kart Double Dash. There exists an 8th shortcut on Dino Dino Jungle that hasn't been hit fast enough yet. It's similar to Luigi Circuit, where you start a lap from the other end of Checkpoint Zero. A few years ago, Waluigi Stadium was alone. Now, half the courses in the game have a shortcut. Double Dash is going to be played for generations to come. And right now,
well, yeah, assuming humanity lasts for generations.
But if its past is any indication,
if Twitter's any indication, we're on our way out.
Its courses and finding shortcuts. 8 courses have yet to fall victim to a shortcut, but it seems that their days are numbered. More courses will be broken. The only questions are when will it happen, and who will be the ones to do it. Thanks for watching.
Another banger from Summoning Salt.